Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming back for the second session. Last night after the class, I went back to my room and I wrote down what exactly do I want to share in this 2-day seminar. So I just wanted to write down what is the actual thing that I want to give. So then I wrote down and it came to 11 points. And then I saw, out of these 11, how much did I cover today? Means yesterday. So last night I was asking. Then I saw that 3 points were covered. So the remaining 8 I will cover today. So what are the 3 points? See, basically, behind the philosophy of the mind, which we discussed, ego, mind, intelligence, and the principles of awareness, acceptance, aspiration, there was something really I wanted to share. And that was 11 tools or techniques by which we could find some peace with our own minds. The whole idea was to share these 11 techniques, which I practice myself. So I have a basket in which these 11 plus many other techniques are there. So I pick up some of them every day or one of them every day or like that. So it's a basket which contains many of these tools. So I thought I should share those tools with you, and if it helps you, you can also use them. That was the whole idea. And yesterday I shared 3 tools. First was the art of negotiation with the mind, where there are 4 steps. Anybody remember what is the first? Huh? Recognize with awareness. Second, accept with humility. Third, negotiate with reason. And fourth, deal with kindness. So this is my all-time favorite tool. Whenever I feel guilty, because unfortunately, the way we grew up in our Krishna consciousness, somewhere we got certain things wrong, and we felt that feeling guilty and inadequate is good. So the default setting has become that we want to feel guilty and we want to feel inadequate, and that's unhealthy for a peaceful life. So to overcome that, these 4 tools under the art of negotiation really helps. So this was one thing we discussed yesterday, and I shared one example also. Anybody remember what example I shared for this case study? Vrindavan trip during Kartik. That is one. Second tool I shared was one Mahamantra. Just take one Mahamantra at a time, for which I gave a very popular example. Rahul Dravid, right? One ball at a time. So we can take one Mahamantra at a time. So that is an excellent tool. Trust me, I gave an exercise also, if you remember. What was that? How many Mahamantras I told you to chant today? 5. Did you try it? What happens when you chant 5 Mahamantras attentively? You feel it's like an engine. When the engine moves, all the bogies of the train move. So if the first few mantras are attentive, then chanting becomes a very happy process. Anyway, this is the second tool I shared yesterday. And the third was bedtime prayer, which I learned from one of our brahmacharis. He refuses to sleep at night till he has connected to Krishna. And he has taken it forward. When he gets up in the morning also, he spends first few minutes connecting to Krishna. So prayer is what he begins the day with, and prayer is what he ends his day with. So these were the 3 tools. Bedtime prayer is a very, very powerful tool. You sleep feeling connected to Krishna, and you wake up with new hope and freshness. So today we'll discuss some more, 8 more, hopefully, in the next few minutes. And so now we are going to discuss this very important topic of pause. How, when we pause in our lives, our awareness, remember we are talking about awareness in this seminar, yesterday and today. Awareness means to recognize how our mind is wandering or what is happening. Awareness is a very important first step. And to improve our awareness, we need to learn to pause. Press the pause button in life. So this is actually Shastrik. Sanatan Goswami, in his, you see on the slide here, Sanatan and Rup Goswami, they have given it a beautiful name. As Sanatan Goswami in Hari Bhakti Vilas, he gives different rules for chanting japa nicely. And one of the rules, I will not get into, it's not a japa seminar, so I will not discuss all of them. But one of them is mantrartha chintan, meditating on the meaning of the holy name. Then it talks about mana samskaranam, pulling the mind back when it wanders. Then it talks about shaucha, cleanliness. And Sanatan Goswami also talks about mauna, keeping quiet. How mauna, silence helps. Then it talks about anirveda, determination. And one of them is a powerful tool, he calls it avyagratva. And Sanatan Goswami says avyagratva means patience. Dheri rakho, sab ho jayega. So patience is extremely important in our chanting. Because for many of us, unfortunately, japa has become an obligation. We chant the holy names of God rather than an expression of love, rather than considering it as a special time with my beloved Lord, we look up to chanting as a chore to do. It's a tragedy. And therefore, what we do is, when we chant our rounds, we are always desperate to finish, right? Our mood is not to complete the rounds. Our mood is to finish. Khatam karna hai. Khatam matlab murder. So that's why our chanting is also like that. It's very unfortunate. And just imagine if your loved one, the person you claim you love and the person claims to love you, and the whole conversation is like, ठीक है, अभी आपके 1 घंटा जो बोलना है बोलो. If your lover says like that to you, मेरे पास बहुत कम टाइम है, जो बोलना है बोलो बस. And as you are talking to him or her, keep looking at the watch. How long will that relationship last? And this is what is happening in our relationship with Krishna. Chanting, we are so time conscious. Some devotees tell me that they think, Acha, now I have got 20 minutes, I can finish 3 rounds, I'll pull through, then I'll take bath, then walking to the bus stop, I'll chant 2 rounds, in the bus I can chant 3 rounds, so then while coming back, so ho jayega, aaj ka 16 mala ho jayega. They plan like this. This is not the way we develop a relationship with Krishna. So avyagratva means, forget all this, just be patient. It's very unloving to rush your rounds. If you are with someone you claim to love, and if you are always rushing, it's always about speed, fast, finish, तो उसमें प्यार ही नहीं है. So, if you are looking at your watch always while chanting, so the moral of the story is throw the watch away. And avyagratva is one technique, one tool. When I read it first time in Satyananda Maharaj's book in 2008, and all those 6 techniques I forgot over a period of time. Then again I would read and I would give a seminar. Again after some time I would forget some of the techniques. Then again I would read, give seminars. Like this for the last 11 years I have been doing this. But one technique I never forgot. That was avyagratva. It resonated with me so deeply when first time I read it, because instinctively I knew that this makes a lot of sense. Because it is very unloving to be rushing in your japa. So when we chant our holy names, when we do our prayers, if we become time conscious, whatever you are doing so that you can spend time with Krishna. And that very activity you are becoming time conscious. That's tragedy. It's like a man going to work from morning to night. He's struggling, slogging, going in the local train. He's suffering so much. All because he feels in the evening he's going to get some solitary moments with his beloved. That's the whole goal or his desire. And when finally gets that time, he is thinking, abhi next kya? Abhi kya karna hai? But ye sab tumne kiya so that you can spend time. Similarly, when we are chanting, that's the fruit of, the time to chant the holy name is the fruit of all the things you have done in the last 24 hours. So it's a tragedy. Therefore, avyagratva is a very powerful tool. And personally, trust me, whenever I have remembered this in my chanting, suddenly I feel mera jo pressure chala gaya. And once I remember His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj was asked a question in the morning Bhagavatam class. One devotee said, Maharaj, my wife, she's so sincere. She gets up early in the morning and she finishes her japa complete everything by 6:30 in the morning. And then she manages the house. She's so sincere. She gets up at 2:33. And Maharaj, I don't have so much work, but still I'm so lazy. I am able to complete my rounds only by 4:30 in the evening, or sometimes even 6 o'clock. So Maharaj, what should I do? How can I become sincere like my wife? So Maharaj said, very interesting answer. He said, it's great that Mataji is able to complete her rounds by 6:30 in the morning. But what is best is, you complete your rounds any time of the day in attention, then finish your japa at 6:30 in the morning. Because you are with Krishna. Why do you want to finish your japa by 6:30 in the morning? It's good if you can complete your rounds by 6:30 and chant the whole day. That's another aspect. But Maharaj touched that point about avyagratva. He didn't mention that term, but that, come on, you're with Krishna. So we have so many things to do. Tasks, tick, 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 tick. So chanting, unfortunately, becomes one of that. So let us understand. So this is a way you will see a dramatic improvement in your awareness levels, because you are with Krishna. And if you are with Krishna and no other agenda than to be with Krishna, then Krishna will reveal everything. That's what Bhagavatam says, no? Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavati. You are with Krishna, Krishna will take care. So therefore, it's very important we understand. And Krishna comes in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam in Kali Yuga. Right? So Srimad Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of Krishna. So when we have Bhagavatam classes and we hear without an agenda, when we read Bhagavatam without an agenda, what I mean is, sometimes I read Bhagavatam saying that, Acha, I have to give a class on patience. Let me look for points on patience. That's an agenda, which is good because that is also needed. But sometimes allowing Krishna to, see, the whole Krishna conscious process is based on receive, not achieve. Our whole life is gone in achieve. Receive means receiving the sound. And therefore we have Bhagavatam classes. Srila Prabhupada installed this system because that sound purifies. Yesterday I was chatting with Yudhishthira Prabhu, and such a nice point he said, that some things we don't understand in the Bhagavatam, but just hearing it purifies. And we receive Krishna. So we need to be patient with the scriptures, with the process. So there's a very beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam. You can please repeat after me. Anartho pashamam sakshad bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. So Vyasdev was despondent. Narad Muni's guru tells him to write and glorify Krishna. And Vyasdev gets this vision of Bhagavatam. And he understands that all the unwanted things in the heart will go away when we practice Bhakti Yoga. And because people are not aware of pure devotional service, Chakre Satvata Samhitam, Vyasdev composed Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we hear Srimad Bhagavatam attentively, what will happen? The next verse says, please repeat after me. Yasyam Vaishriyamanayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsa Shokamoha Bhayapaha. So Shriyamanayam, if we hear attentively about Krishna, who is the Paramapurusha, then Bhakti will arise in the heart and three special things will happen. We will become free of the last line, Shoka, Moha and Bhaya. Apaha means it will get dissolved. Shoka means lamentation. Moha means illusion. And Bhaya means fear. So Shoka, lamentation is generally about past. Moha, illusion, is about present. And Bhaya, fear, is generally about future. So basically in past, present and future, we are miserable. And that will go away if we have a culture of attentive hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, we need to patiently practice this process, understanding that Krishna is present in the form of Bhagavatam for us. So now sometimes it pains us when devotees, they just say, Prabhu, we want practical class, practical, practical, practical. Practical means we are still living in the world of the mind. But Bhagavatam and Krishna is encouraging us to rise above the mind, enter Krishna's space, and be with Krishna. That's why patience is required in the process. Not in, when we are trying to hurry up and do other things, we are going far away from Krishna. Now, sometimes a very, very, very valid question devotees ask that after practicing Krishna consciousness for a long time, still it seems the process doesn't work. So I have this slide in front of you, and I want you to spend some time understanding this. If the process apparently doesn't seem to work, then we could try three things. First is, let us work on increasing the quantity of our sadhana, because it's a cry of the soul actually. After you have spent some time, I don't know if you have felt some time, somewhere in your hearts, a voice that tells you, you need to chant more, you need to hear. But we brush it off because I have so many important seva to do, And everybody's talking about seva. You will not find anyone talking about chanting more, or very rarely you find people talking about chanting more and reading more for Krishna. Generally we talk about service, mission, preaching. Even though we hear that voice within, somehow we squelch it. We just don't want to hear that voice of Krishna. We prefer to hear the noise of our mind. But that is Krishna's voice. So when we get older, and if you're feeling bored in bhakti, that could be because you need to do more chanting. Maybe you need to hear more. It's an irony. As we get older, we actually should do more hearing and chanting, but we reduce it. See, physical food, the physically eating food that we eat should reduce as we get older. And the spiritual intake should increase as we get older. But ulta hota hai bahut baar. We should actually do more hearing, chanting. So let us say you have increased your quantity and still you are not feeling the you're not feeling that love from Krishna, you're not feeling that presence of Krishna in your life. Then maybe it's time to improve the quality of our sadhana. So there are 4 different things I do to improve the quality. And all of them are excellent tools that devotees have developed over a period of time, and it has helped me personally. I'll briefly touch upon this, and later on, if it excites you, I'm going to do again part 2 of this Mind Your Mind seminar on 29th and 30th of June. That time we can take this in greater detail. But today I'll just give, because I have seen that one of the biggest needs of devotees in Krishna consciousness is, Prabhu, how can I improve the quality of my sadhana? So one of the most powerful tools which we have is the SALT method, which has personally helped me a lot. SALT is, if you make pasta, khichdi, lasagna, anything you make nice, delicious item, salt is the most important ingredient, right? Similarly, our day, morning to night, one day is like an offering to Krishna. And that offering should also have salt. So, sometimes while cooking, you forget to put salt. And last mein aa jata hai. So just before it is offered to the devotees, you put salt. Chalo. But डालते हैं ना salt तो at least end में तो डालना ही पड़ता है. So whole day if you haven't put salt, so what I do is, because I'm very passionate, rajoguna बहुत है, so I overlook salt. But at night before sleeping, I try to put salt. And what is salt? S stands for sorry. A for asking Krishna for whatever you want. L for listen. When you're chanting, listen. Or when you're praying, when you're in the presence of Krishna. We generally think prayer means talking. Chanting means chanting. There's also an element of listening to Krishna. Listening to the conscience, that voice within. And T stands for thank you. So if we have invested our emotions in sorry, asking and thanking Krishna at least once in a day, that means we have added salt to our offering to Krishna. Because without investing emotions in our devotional practice, we can't expect Krishna to reciprocate. The process appears dry because we haven't invested emotions. Rupa Goswami, Nectar of Devotion, says that ultimately all the rules and regulations we are following is, the essence of that is to remember Krishna favorably. So remembering Krishna, investing these emotions is extremely important. So after your japa, if you have chanted your 1 round, after your 16 rounds, you can ask yourself, oh, was there salt? No. You will realize, pura 16 mala ho gaya, you never once apologized to Krishna for the mistakes you committed. You never once thanked Krishna in your entire 16 rounds. You never listened to the word, the syllable of the holy name. And we never even asked with fervent, it may appear material, but at least we can ask Krishna. So like that. So this is a very nice tool. And if nothing works at night before going to take rest, before retiring for the night, we could connect to Krishna by the salt method. Another very nice way to connect to Krishna is the commitment return report steps, which I picked up from one very famous organization, and then I confirmed it with my spiritual master and my senior authorities, and I personally practiced it. It's very interesting. Now, commitment return report system is where it's based on scriptures. The foundation is Shastra. So, and especially attention in Shastra. If you are listening to scriptures attentive, every day if you hear one class of Prabhupada or your spiritual master, if not one class, at least 10 minutes, or read Bhagavatam for 10 minutes, or some verses from the Gita for 5 minutes. Some connection with scriptures, and if we listen, then we will be inspired in our bhakti to make a commitment to Krishna. Some kind of commitment. It could be something very silly. It could be something like, Krishna, tomorrow I am going to appreciate 5 devotees. Something like that. I'm just saying, it could be anything personal that is important for you. So commitment. So commitment is the first step here. Making some commitment to Krishna. And then comes a very important step. Keeping that commitment. And that takes a struggle because we generally forget. But if we have honestly made a commitment to Krishna, with investing our even if we don't feel emotions for Krishna, if we invest our emotions on a commitment, I commit to do this. And then we'll hear Krishna's voice in the heart, which will tell us, Prabhu, you made a commitment. And then if you brush it aside, that means we're ignoring our relationship with Krishna. And if you somehow keep it, that's not complete. You keep that commitment, then you return and report about what happened. Even if you fail to keep your commitment, return and report. So what happens as a result of this is our accountability increases. We become accountable to the Lord. If it's before chanting that you make a commitment, if it's before the deities, wherever, whatever form, or if it is before studying Bhagavatam, then you're accountable to that aspect of Krishna. So this is a very nice process. This also helps improve devotees' emotional connection with Krishna. And the third is, let the mind touch Krishna practice. This is a very nice practice. Our mind can touch Krishna every day. And one excellent tool which you can practice immediately is, all of you have Krishna book with you? Srila Prabhupada has written Krishna book. Read 1 page of Krishna book. Slowly. Then close the book. And then speak that page to yourself. And you will forget some lines, you will remember some lines. Try. Stretch your mental muscles. Then after some minutes, then again read that page, second time. And that time you will realize, oh, I forgot this line. Oh, I forgot that line. After you read second time, again close the book. And then speak it to yourself again. So 2 times you have done that. Then go to the next page. So you will, the whole Krishna pastimes will be full of life. Your mind would have touched Krishna because you are recalling. I remember once for Janmashtami, this happened inadvertently. I didn't plan like that. I was doing this exercise. So I read Krishna entering Mathura. So it became so exciting. how the Mathura, the roads were lined up when Krishna entered, how the Mathura Vasis greeted Krishna, how they decorated the walls. It was like a movie. And that's when I realized the difference between watching something on the screen and creating that in your own mind. When we read or hear, you are the director of that movie. Because you're creating visuals. And that nourishes us more than the bombardment of senses by some visuals on the screen. So then I read Krishna entering, killing Kuvalya Pida, Chanura, Mushtika, the whole thing, and I learnt it like this. And then I had to give a class that year. For almost 45 to 50 minutes, I just spoke this as it is, slowly. And I was myself surprised by what I spoke. And everybody also liked it. So it was not intentional, but it happened like that. It was so nice because our minds had touched Krishna. Because we had exercised our muscles, mental muscles in recalling and in basically recreating that scenes from Krishna book. Like the way the gopis, the Venu Geet, that was very nicely described in Krishna book by Prabhupada. So if you read all these chapters and then allow the mind to touch Krishna, it's very, very nourishing. In general, reading helps the mind get nourishment more than watching on the screen. It's very powerful. Like somebody gave me one novel, Avarana, it's in Kannada. So I read the English translation. And after I read it, I was so nourished. And I felt, wow. And fortunately, nobody has made a movie out of that novel. Because if the movie is made, people will watch the movie. And then they'll not read the novel. But reading is very special. So like that. So this is another way we can connect to Krishna, improve the quality of our spiritual practice. And the last is a very nice one, recall, relation, resolve system, where you need 2-3 devotees for this. It's a very exciting exercise. Last year, I went to Vrindavan with the group of 4-5 devotees. No, last year. For 4-5 days. And every day in the afternoon, we would play one class of Srila Prabhupada. The 4 of us would sit in the room. We were staying at Fogla Ashram. So 45 minutes Prabhupada's class we would play. And all of us would hear attentively without making any notes. First time when I told the devotees, none of you will make, just hear. And after the class is over, you will have to recall the entire class. They said, Prabhuji, kuch yaad nahi aayega. I said, Arey, trust me, you will remember. Don't take tension, just be present. So we heard. So after the class, I said, okay, now let us recall. So, Prabhuji, I have never been so good in memory in school, college, I don't think I remember anything. I said, something you must remember. So he remembered one point. Then another devotee said he remembered another point. Then I remembered something. And when I said something, the first fellow remembered something else. And believe it or not, we recalled the entire class. So the class was for 40 minutes. Prabhupada's class is generally 30 minutes. After that, we spent 10-15 minutes just simply recalling the whole thing. And after recalling, I said, okay, now second round. What did you like in this? Something you must have relished. So then we shared what we relished. And when sharing that, somebody remembered something else connected to that point. Some story they heard here, or some analogy, or some verse from the Gita. So that went on for another half an hour. Then I said, okay, now the last round is, based on this class, what could we resolve in our lives to make our lives better and more meaningful, more productive, more spiritual? But then somebody said, Prabhupada says like this, we could do something like this. So you see what happened? The class was for 30 minutes, but our discussions went on for 1.5 hours. So what we had done was, just like when you eat food, they say eating more important than putting food in the mouth is to chew it and digest it. Similarly, Shravanam was there, but Shravanam became Mananam, and that churning happened very nicely. And all of us felt so nourished by that half an hour class. So 3 steps. First is recall. Recall means what you learned from the class, what you remember or learned. Then what you relished or what you liked. And third is what you resolve or what you want to live by. So these are some of the things we could do to sincerely improve the quality of our spiritual practices. Because boredom is a challenge or monotonous lifestyle is a reality for many devotees. And this will help. Let us say, now, despite increasing the quantity, which is a cry of the soul, despite trying to improve the quality, things don't seem to help, or you're still feeling miserable, you're in anxiety. That's okay. Srila Prabhupada gave a very beautiful phrase, he would say many times. Do the needful. Prabhupada would say that. Do the needful means do what is required to be peaceful, happy. So we have many people in the market outside, and they are specialized in this field. And one of them is Marshall Rosenberg, who gave us the science of non-violent communication. And this is my favorite amongst non-Krishna conscious stuff. This is the one I depend on most. I find the principles here very close to Krishna consciousness. So it's a very simple process. Whenever I'm disturbed or whenever I'm not in order, I just pick up the needs, feelings card. I have a card, I always carry it with me. I forgot today. I have got. So feelings, one page contains feelings, the second contains needs. So if I'm disturbed, I just pick up the card. I just see what am I feeling now. And some word resonates. What am I feeling? What am I feeling? So there are many words there. Sad, discouraged, disappointed, depressed, lonely, uncomfortable, hurt, embarrassed, angry, mad, torn, fearful, anxious, worried, apathetic, hopeful, clear, connected, stimulated, fascinated, surprised, open, delighted, amazed. All the possible feelings have been summarized in this one page. So what am I feeling now? Some word resonates with me. And generally the feelings are because of some need that is either met or unmet. Then I turn the page. What is my need now? So I connect to some need. And then I connect to an action plan. What could I do now to fulfill my need? So immediately awareness improves. Otherwise we are just getting carried away. Even when counseling people, I've used this always. I always carry this. Sometimes, I myself need empathy. I'm tired. I need a break. I'm tired, and then somebody needs help. And you are serving them, but you can't really serve them because they are so disoriented. Sometimes I tell them, Prabhu, wait. I have this card. Would you mind going through what exactly you are feeling now? It will help us connect to each other better. No, Prabhu, I will go through this later. Let me tell you this point. And it goes on and on and on and on. No, Prabhu, wait. Prabhu, see, before you came here to meet me, you are miserable. Now 2 of us are miserable. It's not going to help. Both of us are going to be miserable. So relax. I want to serve you. I want to connect to you. So then, okay, what am I feeling? I'm feeling fearful. That word, somewhere it resonates with you. Right now I'm feeling fearful and anxious. Okay, pause. It's okay. Accept that feeling. I'm feeling fearful. I'm feeling anxious. Why? What is that need which is unmet? And then you see the needs and suddenly you realize it could be because I need respect and I didn't get respect. I felt insulted. So that because of that lack of respect, I feel very fearful that I'll not be taken in this group. So whatever. So then I ask, okay, now what could we do to get respect? Maybe I could communicate. Maybe I could withdraw from this group. So there is some positive action plan. So from a state of miserable feeling, you have come to a positive state of doing something about it. It is such a miraculous process, it works immediately. I know some of you may be skeptical. Where is Krishna in this? But Tamal Krishna Maharaj would always say, first become conscious, then become Krishna conscious. And he said Prabhupada told him this. So I like that statement of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, that first become conscious, then become Krishna conscious. If we are not aware of what's happening within us, in our inner world, how will we help others? How will we serve others? So this is a very nice card. If you want after the class, you could, I have only 2. You could maybe take a photo. Nowadays everybody has a mobile. You can take a photo and this is very helpful. And for more details, you can read Marshall Rosenberg's books. Actually, Premnidhi Prabhu made this card. I'm so grateful to him in 2015 or 16. Since then, this has become my inseparable companion. Bead bag and this. On one hand, bead bag, and one hand I carry this. So I think many times in our classes also I've spoken in our Borivali, in our congregation preaching. Because it helps, when you connect your own feelings and needs, you feel empowered, you feel you're in control of your life. So this is a very nice tool. Actually, in the essence of all this I'm discussing today, the principle is what? Pause. We're talking about slow down in life. It's okay. We want to speed up. We want to reach great heights. But the essence is slow down. Relax. God is never in a hurry, but is always on time. Actually, for studies have shown that for long-term success in this world, you need to take a break, you need to relax the body, you need to consciously slow down. And nowadays, relaxation is a swear word. People don't like. Like sometimes I ask, how many of you like to do nothing and relax? Immediately that people become defensive when they hear this question. Oh, do nothing? What do you mean nothing? We should always be doing something. No, just relax, doing nothing. People really become uncomfortable. Nobody wants to say that I like to do nothing or I like to relax. It's a swear word. Because, it requires a lot of hard work to do nothing. It's not easy. The mind is always troubling us and we think I'm in control if I'm doing something. And we give the example of Srila Prabhupada. We love to quote Srila Prabhupada. He was always doing something for Krishna. He was always busy for Krishna. 22 hours he was working. But if you carefully analyze his life, you will see Srila Prabhupada relaxed all the time. Because he was with Krishna all the time. Like, he would go for a morning walk every day, wherever he was. And every day he took a massage. And he took prasad alone. I wanted a photograph of Prabhupada taking prasad, alone he would take quietly. He would talk to the guests. When he was talking to the guests, he was present with them. He was not doing multitasking. Texting also, talking also, chanting in one hand, sending messages. Always stress, nahi, kuch stress nahi. Be present. We think it's very cool to do multitasking. But you're not present. Srila Prabhupada was completely at ease. Even during those days when he was in Vrindavan, people say Prabhupada wrote Bhagavatam, first canto, purport, second canto, he stayed in Vrindavan. You go back to Lilamrit and read his lifestyle during those days in Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada spent every day morning 2 to 3 hours visiting all the Goswami temples, then coming back, then cooking prasad, cleaning his rooms, talking. He had so many Brajvasi friends who would keep coming to his room. The whole Lilamrit describes a variety of them. It's hilarious. One magician type of person, one man with a lot of flashy clothes, one astrologer, one Ayurvedic doctor. They would come and spend hours. One day, one of them came and was speaking to Prabhupada, and after he left, and they were talking intensely for a few hours. So then, Achyutanand Prabhu asked Srila Prabhupada, who was he? Was he your god brother? Prabhupada said, no. Was he, he asked different things. Was he a businessman? Was he a donor? Was he this? Prabhupada said, no. And he asked him, who was he? Prabhupada said, my friend. Prabhupada had so many friends in Vrindavan like that. And he would spend hours talking to them. And after all this, he would do some translation. And he would take some rest in the afternoon. Every day. And then he would do translation. And then again, every evening when he was in Vrindavan, for 2.5 hours, he would go to all the Goswami temples, take darshan, and whoever he would meet, he would greet them, Radhe Radhe, Jai Sri Krishna, chant. So he was busy, but he was also in sattva, which we discussed yesterday. So being busy for Krishna doesn't mean being disconnected from oneself. So therefore, it's very important that we slow down. And our example is Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was fully engaged in Krishna's service. But he said that walking, massage, all this, he said, increased my lifespan. It gave me 10, 15 years, he said. So now you may ask, Prabhuji, but I'm young and I have a lot of passion. I want to be doing something. And if I pause, what do I do when I pause? मुझे कुछ करना है. So pause, what I mean by pause is you look, think and feel beyond yourself. In the sense, we either read scriptures or do some seva or spend time in nature. See, the most wonderful feeling in this world is when you feel loved, when you feel you're wanted. You ask anyone who is happy and in love, he will say that, oh, this is the most wonderful feeling. So as devotees of Krishna, even devotees want to feel loved by Krishna. They may do a lot of service, but at the end of the day, they want to experience Krishna in their life. And Rupa Goswami has given us 64 wonderful ways to experience Krishna in our lives. But to experience Krishna in our life, we need to rise beyond our own muddled thoughts, our mind. And despite so much time that we spent in Krishna consciousness, if we're not feeling loved by Krishna, that means we are still living in the world of our minds. So let us get out of our mind and let us enter a higher reality of Krishna, of even experiencing Krishna, seeing Krishna in nature. Like Albert Einstein, he said, a person who cannot pause and stand in wonder and at the sky, at the stars, at the nature, such a person who cannot admire and see divinity in nature, he is actually dead. His eyes are actually closed. So we have so many daily appointments, daily things to do. So we are generally living in the world of our head and our hands. Head is Jnana Yoga, hands is Karma Yoga. But we also have a heart. We also need to live in the world of the heart. Because the seat of emotions is the heart. And that is the place, heart is the place where inspiration grows, where purpose flourishes, where love blossoms. It's the heart where ambition meets conscience. Heart is the place which is full of emotion. It is a place where, where more than achievements, there is something more than achievements that we need. And in the rush of things to do, unfortunately, we neglect our heart. And the results are disastrous, to say the least. People feel so disconnected. And many people, what they do at such times is they take to instant gratification. They go for dopamine kicks. They think, kuch karenge, action. But it has been proven by many studies that these dopamine kicks that we take through a lot of, high thrill activities, doing something. But when it wears off, then there is a prolactin which is released, which has the exact opposite effect. It increases depression, irritability. And then we want to offset that, so we engage more in dopamine kicks. So basically what happens is there is overall a volatile fluctuation of neurochemicals in our body. And overall that reduces our immunity, that has an adverse effect on our health. Overall effect is extremely bad. So it's a vicious cycle. Therefore let us slow down. And if you find Krishna, yesterday I met some devotees who said, they are very new. They said this is the first experience and exposure to Krishna consciousness. There's some members, some participants in this program met me yesterday and they said, this is the first time in ISKCON. And if you find chanting, you are not very comfortable chanting so much, you could at least begin to pause by maybe doing some pranayam or breathing, slow down, spend some time in nature. These are all healthy, bona fide activities. Like, inhaling to the count of 4, then holding your breath for 8, and then exhaling 8 to the count of 8. Every day if you do for 5 minutes, you will see a big difference. Pura yahan ka clutter chala jayega. Just 5 minutes, you can put your alarm for 5 minutes, try this and see the difference. It just slows down. We are so busy making a living that we have not left any room for life. Living has become more important than life in general. And one of the most important things we could do is, see, I do this. There is a banyan tree near Hanging Garden. I go and spend time under that tree. And one day I thought, maybe I'm speculating. All this is very written in Shastra. I thought like that. And then, but I feel very comfortable under a peepal tree, banyan tree, and sitting in a park. So I thought, is it bona fide? See the banyan tree, and that Mali there, he tells me that this banyan tree is 400 years old. He claims like that. So when I see the tree, huge tree, and all the insects coming out, and the squirrels, and the ants, and the birds nest there, it's fascinating. I feel, wow, this tree has been there for so many years. It has seen the third battle of Panipat. It has seen the wars, the freedom struggle. Wow, it's like a grand old grandfather who is there, who is watching. So when I go near the tree, I feel the tree is eternal, timeless. And somewhere, we have heard this so many times. We are not the body, we are the soul, we are eternal. Somewhere the eternity within me, the eternal self connects to that eternity as manifest in that banyan tree. Somewhere we are connected. And I feel so spiritual there. So I thought, okay, this is Maya. I knew it is not Maya. And then I saw one of our temple leaders. I don't want to quote him because he may not like it. One of our very senior most devotees. He was there in front of that people tree there, and he was offering some water, doing something. I thought, "Arey, kya kar raha hai?" Then I became a jasoos. I went and I observed him. Then quietly I came next day also. Every day he comes. Next day he had some flowers in his hand and he was offering some flowers. But he kya kar raha hai? Then I went and I confronted him. Prabhuji, kya karte aap? It's सब speculation hai. He said, nahi, Prabhu, this is... Then he quoted Rupa Goswami. One of the 64 items is to respect the banyan tree. So I thought, wow. And then he explained how we have many leaders in ISKCON. Radha Govind Maharaj. If you see Radha Govind Maharaj, he is a disciple of Prabhupada. Whenever he sees a banyan tree, he offers Dandavat. Whenever he sees a people tree, he offers worship. He says people tree is Vishnu Vas, banyan tree is Shiv Vas. So I liked it very much. So I got all my justification for what I was doing. And then this Prabhuji told me, I come and I chant poems in front of this tree. I embrace the tree. I talk to the tree. I said, wow, this is great. So, and then during my own research, I discovered how there is a new disease now in the world. It has been recognized called nature deficit disorder. Modern humans are suffering from a deficit of nature, exposure to nature. They only live in buildings, If you ask any child to make a drawing of a house, ghar banao, you will always see the child make a house on the ground, earth, with trees and garden. That means the natural instinct for living is on earth, touch with earth. But our lives, we generally live in a building. Now, I saw in Kandivali day before yesterday, 20 buildings are being made there in that small area, each 65 storied. 1,300 stories. Each floor will have 5 houses, so 6,500. And we calculated 25,000 people are going to come and live there now, all in buildings, disconnected from earth. So the more higher we go, more anxieties we carry because earth is a big antidepressant, touching earth. We think it is dirty. We want to wash our hands and we should wash our hands, obviously. But I'm saying earth also is a cleansing. Mother Earth, Bhumi Devi. अरे वो मिट्टी छूते ही इतना स्ट्रेस निकल जाता है. So these things we are disconnected from. So it's very, very unfortunate. And therefore I put this book as a very, very classic book. Walden, if you get time, you can read. English is little old. Henry David Thoreau, he wrote this in 1840s. I had difficulty understanding the English initially. But बाद में समझा, मजा आ गया बात. He is from Harvard. He took 2 years sabbatical and he stayed on the banks of Walden Pond. And America, this book is considered as the greatest book America has ever produced. Americans take a lot of pride in this book. And the whole message of this book is, consumerist culture is dangerous. Materialistic life is nonsense. This is in 1840s. We should spend time with nature. We should relax. And he writes in one third chapter, he writes an incident that he was rushing to his cottage and a small hut. And that time it started raining. So he went to one farmer's house. And that farmer was living with his family. So Thoreau told that man, you are so lucky. You are living in this forest, such a simple, peaceful life. You must be so happy. So this man tells Henry David Thoreau that, actually I am desperate to go to New York and earn money. And he was so ambitious. So it reflected modern thinking so much. But life is not like that actually. Life we need to trust our growth, our evolution, because life, things happen in nature organically and slowly. If you want light, you switch on and then you get light. But nature doesn't give light like that. The sun rises gradually, there is sunrise, there is sunset. Seasons change gradually. No? How seasons change. Now summer is going on. Before the rain start, a few days there will be clouds gathered up in the sky, and then you'll feel it's going to rain, and you'll feel the wind, and slowly rains, and then winter, and then summer. Age, body, how it becomes old. Suddenly one day you don't become old. So the point I'm saying is, this is what Stephen Covey calls law of the farm. You plant the seeds, you put water, and you plow the field, and then you harvest. But law of exam is what? You mug up one night before the exam, you vomit it out, khatam, and then you forget. So we have grown up with law of the exam, and we have ignored the law of the farm. The natural organic growth we have forgotten. And therefore, even in bhakti, when we come back to Godhead right now, this lifetime, I can die tomorrow, I want to go back to Godhead. So we want to circumvent natural laws. We want to gate crash into spiritual world. It doesn't happen like that. That's a reality. Of course, Mahaprabhu's mercy is there. We'll all go back to Godhead. That's a reality. But there's also another reality, that there is a journey. We all have a journey home. So for that, you need to pause, you need to connect. If I take a weekly day off, and if I say I'm taking it off because if I tell people I cannot do this program because I'm very busy, I have some other commitment, people generally, they pardon you. But if you say, I cannot come for this program because that's my weekly day off where I spend time with myself, people get bewildered. People think you've gone crazy. What? Time with yourself? So, to slow down is not a weakness. It's not that you are, I read one nice quote once, an unhurried sense of time, that itself is a big wealth. To have to go around, to lead a life in a relaxed way is a big wealth. And at least if we can't have holiday, we can't relax, and we feel it's waste of time, no problem. At least some time in a day we can spend connecting to Krishna. During the Second World War, American President Harry Truman, he succeeded Franklin Roosevelt. And then that was the peak of the war. So the Allied forces, they defeated Germany and Japan surrendered. And there was a lot of anxiety during that period. But Truman was always cool. He was never seen in anxiety. So one day the reporters asked him, there's such a big world war going on. How come you are so cool and relaxed? And he said something interesting. These soldiers, when they are fighting, they make ditches, trenches. And that's called a foxhole. They enter that for temporary relief. And they kind of breathe and they relax. And then again they come out and fight. So Truman said, every day I have my foxhole. I enter the foxhole every day. So similarly, we need to enter our mental foxholes every day for some breathing space, for some strength. Because if you burn the candle at both ends, then you are not actually as bright as you think you are. You could be in for big trouble. So let us learn to connect to Krishna. And now what happens here, when we when we pause and we connect to Krishna and we practice spiritual life, I've seen that we go to the other extreme. In spiritual life also we become desperate. अच्छा अभी इतना लेक्चर सुनना है, अभी इतना माला करना है, उस पे भी things to do. That also becomes, it's very stressful. Like we quote Srila Prabhupada for it. Like if you hear Srila Prabhupada's lectures, like I've seen one management book on time management, they very clearly confess that you need to hear scriptures. This is acknowledged by even management gurus. They call it wisdom books. We need to hear wisdom from above. If you see some of the biggest management gurus in the world, they all have some, if they're speaking substance, they have some connection with some tradition. Wayne Dyer was the #1 management guru till recently, till he passed away. And he was studying deeply Swami Muktananda's books, and he had one Maharaj in Maharashtra. He never spoke about him for whatever reasons. Nisargadatta Maharaj, he was reading his books. But he digested it and he presented it as his teachings. Even our number one leader now, Tony Robbins, American, he gives seminars, whole day seminars, charging $3,000. So he comes to Varanasi, he feels very spiritual there. So that is some connection to tradition. Ancient Mexican Toltec tradition, the Chinese traditions. So people read these wisdom books, they get strength, they get knowledge. So we also have our tradition. We have Srila Prabhupada's lectures. So we hear them. Now what happens unfortunately is many times, we hear those lectures of Srila Prabhupada and we immediately want to copy paste that into our day-to-day life. And we think that, oh, I have this problem, Srila Prabhupada has given solution in this lecture, and now my problem will be solved. And if the problem doesn't get solved, then we get bewildered. We don't understand that Srila Prabhupada's teaching, who was Srila Prabhupada? What was he speaking? He was not from this world. Srila Prabhupada, whatever he spoke was in the space of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said there was never a moment in his life when he didn't remember Krishna. So he was always with Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is speaking from the Krishna space. He is not speaking about your day-to-day office problem. He is speaking about a realm of existence where, actually you will see Srila Prabhupada never had notes in his lectures. He never had to prepare. Because whatever is inside is outside. He was always with Krishna. And when you hear that and you say, okay, and you want to imitate that, you will go crazy. You can't imitate Srila Prabhupada. Like Srila Prabhupada may say some things, like, today morning I was hearing, and I need 7 hours of rest in the night. But I don't get that always. It's a luxury. So whenever I'm in temple and program gets over early, it's an opulence, so that I can get 7 hours of uninterrupted rest. So sometimes I get 5.5, 5, whatever. So today morning when I woke up, I was fresh. I think I had 6 hours of rest. I was fresh, happy. And I played Prabhupada's tape, Prabhupada saying, so one should not sleep more than 1.5 hours. Then you are in Maya. So what should I do? Should I get depressed now? Arey baapre, I am in Maya. So no, I heard it. I said, Jai Prabhupada. Prabhupada. See, Srila Prabhupada said like that many things. And our devotees, we get excited, like Prabhupada said. So one should eat 2 chapatis. That is enough. So 2 chapatis. Prabhupada said 2 chapatis. Arey, principle samjho. So then they started feeding Gurukul children 2 chapatis only. The children were hungry. And Prabhupada said 2 chapatis. That's ridiculous. But it's a fact. It has happened. We have not understood that Srila Prabhupada is in Krishna's space and he is speaking certain principles. You're not supposed to simply copy paste as it is. Like, it's like the principle of sun and the matchstick. Now, there is a principle. What is the principle? Light removes darkness. This is the principle. Now, what is the capacity of the sun to follow this principle? Light removes darkness. It has an unlimited capacity to follow this principle. Now, matchstick also follows this principle. Light removes darkness. Srila Prabhupada is like the sun. And you and me, we could be like that matchstick. So we shouldn't get depressed. We should just remember our potential, apply that principle in our lives, and be happy. Unfortunately, for many of us, it's painful to say this. We have thrived on making others feel inadequate in bhakti, and we ourselves feel guilty always. I am not good enough. I am not good enough. These are the standards. Arey, no. Understand the principle. What is the principle being spoken about? There are 3 things we need to understand. What is the principle that is being spoken here? What is the principle Srila Prabhupada was speaking today morning when I heard the class? What do you think was the principle? One should sleep only 1.5 hours. What is that? What is he saying? Don't waste time, basically. He was talking about don't engage in frivolous activity. That time waste mat karo. That is the principle I understood. That is the principle. Then, position. What is my position now? Prabhupada said 1.5 hours of sleep. My position is I can't sleep 1.5 hours. Like I remember when I joined the temple, I saw one brahmachari, one of my seniors, very sweet devotee, Madan Gopal Prabhu. He was my counselor. And that time we were young, no? So we were passionate. So I would sleep 4.5 hours and think I'm doing a lot of seva. And one day I told Prabhuji, आप कितना घंटा सोते हैं? He said, मेरे को तो 7 घंटा लगता है. I said, Prabhuji, but Prabhupada said more than 5.5, 6 hours is Maya if you sleep. So he said, I am in Maya, it's okay. And the way he said it so nonchalantly, yeah, I am in Maya, I know I am in Maya, but क्या करे, मेरे को जरूरत. That changed my way of thinking. What a very nice way of saying, अब ये है मेरा position ऐसा है, मेरे को जरूरत पड़ता है. So that is the second thing. First is, what is the principle Prabhupada is talking about? Then what is my position? And then practical application of the principle in my position. So these are the 3 ways. Whenever you hear Prabhupada's lectures or Prabhupada's purports and you get bewildered or get confused, don't get bewildered. Just find out the answer to these 3 questions. What is the principle that is being mentioned in this purport? What is my position? And how can I practically apply? And the best example of this is Ramayana. If you see in Ramayana, when all the soldiers were thinking of jumping to Lanka, and Sampati told them that it is 100 yojanas, Jambavan revealed Hanuman's potential. Before Jambavan revealed, all Vanaras were telling, yes, we have to get Mother Sita back, but I can jump only 10 yojanas. Somebody said, I can jump 20. They didn't say, I can jump 20, but I will do it for Lord Ram. Nahin, see, they were enthusiastic, they wanted to serve, but they were so honest about their own limitation. झूठ नहीं बोला कि करेंगे बस प्रभुपाद के लिए कुछ भी करेंगे, ऐसा नहीं. Our greatest service for Prabhupada would be to be honest about our limitations and accept ourselves the way we are and offer a meaningful, happy contribution to Krishna. So all soldiers were extremely enthusiastic but very honest about their limitation. And you can see one very special personality in this photograph, offering service to Lord Ram. You can see a squirrel there, offering pebbles. Lord Ram accepted that service also. Some of us will be squirrels, some of us will be Hanuman, and some of us will be Jambavans, only telling, अरे कूदो, तुम हनुमान है, तुम्हारे पास पावर है, और आप मैं नहीं कर सकता. इसलिए आप देखो जाम्बवान का मंदिर किधर भी नहीं है, हनुमान जी का है. And Jambavan is not in depression. Jambavan, when Hanuman came back, Lord Ram embraced Hanuman. Jambavan did not get credit. Actually, it was because of Jambavan that Hanuman went. Jambavan did not feel, अरे मेरे पास politics हो गया, मैंने सब किया, मेरे को appreciation ही नहीं मिला. So let us be honest, let us pause, connect to ourselves and contribute the best way we can. Then our minds will be peaceful in Hare Krishna movement. We'll be able to serve Krishna happily. So one more concept I want to explain connected to this is that we are social animals, and maximum mental distress we face is because of others, other human beings, what they say, what they do. And generally we land up with 2 mistakes. One is we always make assumptions about them. We never check our assumptions. So we need to spend some time checking our assumptions. And secondly, about our own aspirations. Whatever we are doing in life, we need to ask a simple question, sometimes at least, why am I doing this? Why? Sometimes people say, Prabhu, how to chant attentively? I say, forget how to chant. Why do you want to chant attentively? When we ask why are you chanting Hare Krishna? So there is a public response to this question. Why do we chant Hare Krishna? So I know all the answers that will come now, because Kali Yuga Dharma, we are off to spiritual master, blah, blah, blah. So many answers. Why do I chant Hare Krishna? So Burijan Prabhu writes in his book that for this question, why do we practice Krishna consciousness, there is a public response and there is a private response also. So what is your private response to this question? And you may say, Prabhu, but I never thought about it. So now it's time asking, why are you chanting Hare Krishna? We are scared to ask this question. So 2 things. One is checking our assumptions, and assumptions is extremely important to check because we assume about everyone all the time. अपनी अक्ल और दूसरों की गलती हमेशा ज़्यादा दिखता है. We always think it is more. That is our problem. And if it's like somebody having, our Maslow, so that behavioral sociologist, he said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, if the only thing you have is a hammer, then you will treat everything and everybody as a nail. So if similarly, if you are only making, if we live a life of assumption, some assumption we have made, then everything we treat based on that. And so many times in Krishna consciousness, we see our assumptions get smashed. Once I went to Calcutta in the train, 30 hours, I went for Janmashtami class. So that was a non-peak period. Nobody goes during that time no devotee generally travel to Calcutta at that time. So in that entire coach, there was only another devotee, and he was a devotee whom I had heard a lot of negative things about when I was in Mumbai. And now he was the only other devotee, so we chanted, we spoke, and at the end of the journey, we became best friends, and all my misconceptions vanished. I was thinking that I had earlier heard and thought and believed and assumed that he's miserly, he's lazy, and he's selfish. But after that journey, I realized he is not miserly, he's very helpful, he's not lazy, but he's very hardworking, he's not selfish, but he's actually very grateful to our community. Such a nice service attitude. पूरा अलग ही एक वो मिला. And we assume so, and if you actually honestly examine your assumptions, it can be embarrassing. You know, if you see somebody drive a Lamborghini, you will immediately make some assumptions. You check. If you see somebody belonging to a particular community, you will immediately have some assumptions about him. So, and why we do all these wrong assumptions? Because we have imperfect senses, we have a tendency to commit mistakes. What is that? Illusion, tendency to fall in illusion, we commit mistakes. That four propensities. Cheating propensity. And the scriptures are filled with examples of people who've made wrong assumptions. We have classic example of Sugriva and Vibhishan. In the Vibhishan case, Sugriva didn't want Vibhishan to be joining Ram's party. He made a wrong assumption, right? He said Vibhishan cannot be trusted. So if Sugriva can make that mistake, Sugriva is in Sakyam, the best example for Sakyam in Ramayana. Like Arjuna is the best example for Sakyam in Krishna Lila, in Ram Lila, Sugriva. And he made this mistake. So our assumptions are like windows. You know, we have to keep cleaning them now and again, time and again we have to keep cleaning. Because we see the world through this window. The window of our assumptions. So we should keep cleaning it. And one of the classic examples is Maharaj Parikshit. And Maharaj Parikshit made a big mistake. He assumed that Shamik Rishi is feigning meditation, and he put a dead snake. But then Parikshit Maharaj's greatness is he lamented. His internal mood of humility makes him a great soul and a great character in Vedic history. He's a heroic because of that. And he was righteous. And therefore he lamented, he repented. But the point is, even great, if powerful men can make incorrect assumptions, what to speak of you and me? For to think that my assumptions are right, that is extremely dangerous. How many of us honestly have examined our own assumptions and have been willing to be corrected? If you can't do that, don't expect your mind to be peaceful. You can't say that I want a peaceful life. ऐसा नहीं होता है. We have to work on fundamentals. We have to work on principles. So you may make 5 times you may make right assumptions, but the 6th time you could still be wrong. So we have to, there is a saying, no? If you always assume contains ASSUME. These are the letters of assume. So it says if you always assume, remember, you'll always make an ass of you and me. That is assume. And the best thing to do is to ask questions, actually. That is the best way to become free of assumptions. Ask questions, na? Simple. Questions पूछो, open-ended. समझो? Assumptions are like termites in a relationship. Termites कैसे पूरा खा जाता है? You don't even realize. And then eventually, the relationship gets over in a painful way. So anyway, along with assumptions, there is also the topic of aspiration. Aspiration means asking why, and aspiration based on principles. If we follow principles, then we'll be peaceful. Like, when Sachin Tendulkar, he wanted to retire from cricket after the 2007 World Cup, when India did very bad. So he was depressed. So he said, I'll give up cricket, I will retire. So his brother, who was always kind of his mentor, his brother asked him, why are you playing cricket anyways? Why? He asked the question, why? But then Sachin Tendulkar answered in that, it seems it was a telephonic conversation he had called, saying that I'm feeling very discouraged. So his brother said, why are you playing cricket? He said, because I love the game, and I want to contribute to the game, and I want to win the World Cup. So he said, then pursue that principle of why, and be focused on that why. And then you know what happened 4 years later. He was part of the winning team. So in our lives, you may say, but I'm not like Tendulkar. I'm a simple man who goes in the local train to work. But you can also have an aspiration based on principle. Like you may say, my goal is I want to have a 4 BHK house in South Bombay. I want to buy a big house. And I'm working hard. No, pause and ask why you want that house. There is some principle there. And then you may realize that the principle is you want to take care of your family. You want to love your family. So if you connect to that value, if you connect to that principle of why, then you can fulfill that principle even without that house. Like you can take care of your family in some other ways if you don't get that house. And if you are demotivated to go to work one day, by remembering your purpose, you'll be motivated to go to work. So it works both ways. It has advantages both ways. One is if you are demotivated in life generally, but if you have a strong why centered on a principle, you'll be motivated to do your work. And when you are motivated to do your work, because of some unforeseen circumstances, if you're not able to achieve your goals, then you can still fulfill the principle, that value. I hope I'm able to communicate. So this way, then what happens is then our lives are peaceful. Our minds are peaceful. So then we don't get trapped by the externals. Like one Mataji said this true story. Our 2 teenage daughters, she had told them that I'm going to take you to a circus after 7 or 8 days. She had planned like that. So both the daughters were very excited. So they were excited, 7 days ke baad jayenge. And then the day came, so when they were driving, they got stuck in a traffic jam. It became such a mess that eventually they couldn't go. They had to come back. The whole thing got cancelled. But the interesting thing she said was one daughter was extremely disappointed because she was looking forward for that moment, that day. The other one was okay because during the journey, she was looking out of the window. She had her own things to do. She was quite excited and she was having fun even without having enjoyed the circus. So she said the principle was, the second daughter was happy because she connected to the principle of fun. She had her fun. The other was attached to the activity. उधर ही जाना है. तो वो जो है ना थोड़ा एक, we need to go one step beyond the apparent activity. So like that. Like if you go to England, in England this is a common thing. In 2 hours you will see all climates. If you go for a walk, it will be bright and sunny. Suddenly it will become cloudy, and suddenly it will start raining. Temperatures. So mind is like that. I always tell myself, mind is like in British weather, keeps going up. So to depend on our feelings is stupid. It's a guarantee for misery. Better to be connected to a principle or a value or a why. And if that keeps us going every day, then in the long run, we'll be more peaceful and more happy. And if we're not connected to principles, if we are not leading a life centered on deep values, then we have a very powerful phenomenon called Maya. I don't have much time to discuss about Maya, but Maya is mentioned in all traditions. I read Mexican Toltec traditions. There is a book called 4 Agreements by Dr. John Miguel Ruiz. It's a bestseller. And he speaks about the Toltec traditions and how it helps people. And there they talk about Maya, same concept what we talk, and he calls it as Mito, not Maya. In Chinese tradition also they talk about Maya. And in many traditions they call it as dark force. So what is Maya? Maya is basically an illusion of basically a force that drags us away from the right principles. Temptations, distractions, the bad dog within us which barks and takes us away. The immoral, activities, values, actions that betray our own values. Many people, they say, Prabhu, how did I do this? I mean, I have disappointed myself. It's not me, but I did this. How did we do it? Because we were distracted by Maya. And to understand Maya, I generally give this one example. We will not spend much time, but this is a very interesting incident that happened on 23rd June, 1757. This is a watershed moment in Indian history. In a small village of Bengal, Palashi, all the rustic villagers were thinking, this is what a horrible one-sided battle this is going to be. 3,500 soldiers of Robert Clive were marching into the battlefield to fight against a gigantic army of 75,000 soldiers of Nawab Siajuddaulah, the king of Bengal. So they all thought this is a non-starter. This is not a war. तो खत्म हो जाएगा. 1-2 घंटे में खत्म हो जाएगा. Because for every one British soldier of East India Company, there were 18,000 Nawab's soldiers. And they were, as everyone expected, the war got over in 2 hours. But the result was reverse of what a common man expected. Interesting, right? Nawab Siajuddaulah lost the battle. He was shocked, he was bewildered, he ran for his life, he was somehow caught and he was executed. What went wrong was the Nawab had a commander-in-chief called Mir Jafar. And he was the main commander-in-chief. So he was purchased by Robert Clive. So when the battle started, he and 50,000 soldiers in the infantry, they betrayed the king. And they created havoc from within. So soon the whole of India came under Robert Clive. And Mir Jafar was made the king, and in 1 year he was killed. And that's how British annexed India. So Battle of Plassey is a classic battle. It's a way, it revealed, that's another subject matter, British East India Company's tactics. But that war teaches us many lessons about our inner world. You know, we have, our mind and intelligence is like Mir Jafar. It has been bribed by Maya, by the temptations and distractions of this world. And because we're not connected to the principles and the values and the why, there is no strong why driving us. And we are also always making wrong assumptions about others. So when we make wrong assumptions and when our purpose is not driven by the right why, then that is when the Mir Jafar, like mind and intelligence, is bribed by Maya. So therefore, we need to be careful. There is a very beautiful quote. This is a Roman philosopher of the 1st century, Seneca. I want you to hear this attentively. Beautiful. We should every night call ourselves to an account. What infirmity have I mastered today? What passions opposed? What temptation resisted? What virtue acquired? Our vices will abort of themselves if they be brought every day to the shrift. So basically the point is saying is we need to connect to ourselves, ask questions, have honest introspection. We need to work hard to get peace of mind. Don't think that by simply titillating our senses with some pleasurable activities, I'll get peace of mind. That is simply a titillation. That doesn't satisfy the heart deeply. And the best way to connect to the self, the best way to practice introspection, best way to develop healthy, good habits is by getting up early in the morning. And the greatest game changer in your life would be the morning hours. If you carefully study the lives, you can check on the internet later, the CEOs of the top companies, whether it is Apple, Tim Cook, or Twitter, Xerox, Pepsi, GE, you name it, all these companies, top bosses who are doing well, you'll see something common in them. What is that? You'll say they're billionaires. No, that's not the only common thing. The actual common thing is they all get up before 5 in the morning. They know the value of rising early. Imagine a crystal clear lake, it's tranquil in the morning mist. And what happens if you throw a stone right in the middle of the lake? Beautiful ripples are formed, right? And these ripples would dance rhythmically in response to that small stone. So when we get up early in the morning, our mind is like that lake. So if you get up in the morning and drop one pebble, one thought, let's say a gratitude thought, or a prayer thought, chanting japa, reading Bhagavatam, appreciation, exercise, yoga, something positive. For the ripples are formed. The whole day you will see a pattern. You will see similar kind of positive, life-enhancing things happen in your life. That's why Mahatma Gandhi said this, prayer is the key of the morning and the bolt of the evening. You begin your day with prayer, then you create beautiful ripples. So what some of our devotees do is that we get up in the morning and we write a gratitude journal. And that's like putting a pebble, and you'll see whole day you are grateful, positive. Unfortunately, many of us wake up in the morning with a hangover of the previous day. We are thinking of our boss early in the morning, or we start planning early in the morning. So what happens is, then the whole day we are planning only. Even when that plan is getting executed, you are thinking of another plan. Because that's what you began the day with. So, therefore, it's important that we get up in the morning and drop the first pebble of that which matters to us. So, Steve Jobs' address in Stanford University is very appropriate. For the past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days, I know I need to change something. So when you see early morning traffic and daytime traffic, you see how the traffic is. What happens? Early morning, how much traffic is there? You can drive your car easily, right? And as the day progresses, it's difficult. Similarly, early morning, mind as well as thoughts. You have just got up, you are fresh. So you can easily chant, yoga, all the good things, life-enhancing, positive things can be done early in the morning. Later on in the day, so many so-called important things come up and the mind will refuse to cooperate more later during the day than early morning. So for all the healthy things that you want to do, you have a pre-dawn advantage if you decide to do it early in the morning. So, and as soon as you get up, if first thing is if you check your Facebook or WhatsApp, that means you have given you have given somebody else the chance to control your life. ये आपका टाइम है वो सुबह तो. So if you lose an hour in the morning, you will spend the rest of the day looking for it. So it's very important. And what I have experienced is there is a margin. You can create a margin between your happiness and upheavals. See, our general state, mental level of peace or stability, let's give it a number. If it's at unit, say 7, this is my mental state of existence, 7. And the problems and anxieties in my life are, say, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. But sometimes, and it happens many times, one phone call, one email, one shocking news, and suddenly that upheaval goes to 9. Your general existence is at 7. And if you get, I have experienced, many times, we are just one SMS away from a miserable day. Ek SMS aa gaya, kuch bad news. So, and when that disturbing news comes, then you break down. So, if early morning we have good habits, then what we are doing is from 7 we are living at a level of 10 or 11 or whatever, higher level. So, your disturbances and issues are at 3, 4, and even if there is an upheaval, it will come up to 7 or 8, but it will still be lower than your stability level. You will always be higher than your problems. But your problems could become higher than your mental state. To avoid that, we need to have a variety of activities to do early in the morning, like chanting, deity worship, yoga, prayers, Bhagavatam. So, and I did some research for my book that I'm writing on mind. And I found Aristotle 2,500 years ago speaks a lot about getting up early in the morning. And then Benjamin Franklin in 1760s. Means if you see consistently over 2000 years, great thinkers have spoken about getting up early in the morning. So many quotes I have. And Benjamin Franklin's famous quote, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man and woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. And he said it very graphically. He said, every morning, the early morning has gold in its mouth. So let us seek this gold. Early morning has gold in its mouth. Get that gold. And the best part is the CEO of Apple and you, both of you have the same amount of gold, 24 hours. Nobody has more, nobody has less. We all have the same amount. And one of the best things you could do early morning, if you want, you could try this. I know your life is very busy. You could try what is called free writing, which is an amazing magic therapy. And it's basically journal writing. I once spoke about this and I said every day you should write half an hour. You could write half an hour. So then somebody protested. He said, Prabhuji, we are grahasthas. Half an hour is a luxury. So I said, okay, at least 5 minutes. 5 minutes you can write. Write what? Write anything but positive. And at least end it with something positive. From the heart, not from the head. Generally we think writing means, if I have to share something with the world, I have to write. But writing can also be for discovering. Writing is not simply for expression, writing can also be for discovery. Many times you don't know what is there in your heart. When you start writing, you discover what is there in your heart. It is like talking to an intimate person, intimate companion. And sometimes another person just reflects back, you are talking, but while talking and another person is nicely reflecting back, you discover what is there within your heart. Similarly, journal writing does that. So that's why William Wordsworth is one of the most famous romantic poets in England. He said this famous statement that fill your paper with the breathings of your heart. So we can do this and we will find amazing new opportunities in our lives. Now, I want to end and then we have some question answers. But before I end, I want to share this concept of two realities of our lives. There is what is called as Krishna reality and there is reality of material laws. See, for our inner world, there is something called as, there is Krishna's law. Like devotees, they often, they have a very personal relationship with the Lord. But we also have the reality of this world. And this world has a lot of harsh laws. And a lot of suffering is there in this world. And we can't ignore it. So you see, I put Anand Vrindavan Prabhu's photograph. For those of you who know him, he is an active Krishna conscious devotee for the last more than 30 years. And I know him for the last more than 20 years. So, and I have always seen him that he's so grounded. He knows about the harsh reality of this world. So one day, as an in charge of the Brahmachari class, I told him to do a series of classes for Brahmacharis and I gave him the topic, the bad world of money and sex. Because he is living in the outside world, he knows a lot about the corporate world and what happens. So I thought this topic will excite the Brahmacharis and they will be happy to hear his realizations. And after 3 classes, the Brahmacharis came and told me, "Band karo inka class. Bahut strong hai, bahut heavy hai." Because he was exposing, he was showing a mirror of the world, the way the world is. But even hardcore Brahmacharis couldn't take that. Now, but that was a reality. Now, that is a reality, and there is also another reality, the beauty of Krishna's world, the spiritual world. So sometimes we live only in one of the worlds. We need to live in both worlds. We need to understand what is happening in this world also. And how certain, like if you ask Anand Prabhu is such an amazing person. I don't know how many people in this world can boast of what he has done. For the last 30 years, he has retained his employees. Now, his employees have not left him. I don't know how many any employer would be, it's a great compliment. आपके employees छोड़ के नहीं गए, 25 साल से वही लोग हैं. So what intelligence he must be having? What a great employee care system he must be having. No turnover, no people leaving. What an amazing person. But whenever I've asked him, Prabhuji, क्या आप job करते? क्या आपका talent है? आप कैसे एम्प्लॉयज को रखते हैं? एंड व्हाट ही विल से, कृष्णाज मर्सी, कृष्णाज मर्सी. सो व्हेन ही सेज दैट, इमीडिएटली आई नो, oh, he's talking about Krishna law. He's not talking about the material world. Because there is something else. If I am an employer and if I say, oh, Krishna's mercy, so I will also depend on Krishna, and I don't take care of my employees, I'll be in big trouble. So the point I'm trying to make is, there are certain laws which we have to follow in this world. You have to be intelligent, you have to be smart, you have to work hard, you have to follow certain laws. And at the same time, for our internal journey, we need to connect to Krishna. So the goal of this seminar, which I did, was, my desire was this 11 tools I wanted to share. But most important was, I wanted to explain this, that there are these two realities. My hope and wish is that we don't have an utopian idea about Krishna consciousness, that now I'm going to be a Hare Krishna devotee, chant Hare Krishna, and everything will be all right. Sorry. The laws of this world will act. They will continue to be a challenge, and we need to do the needful. Like what Anand Mahan Prabhu has done with his employees, or what you may be doing in your career, or in your relationships, or like the example I think I gave yesterday about this Prabhuji who goes to every year 1 month, and he is a great devotee, spends the entire year doing devotional service, chanting, preaching, management. But once in a year, for 1 month, he and his wife take a break and they spend 1 month in Hawaii. They holiday and they recuperate and then they come back. And we never quote that example in the classes. We only speak about what they do in the 11 months. But we also need to share this. So balance. Because you have your life filled with many things, and one aspect of your life is Krishna consciousness. And you come to a Hare Krishna program, and we, in our 99.9% of our classes, we address that 1% aspect of your life. We ignore your other 99%. So you need to have that common sense to understand that, okay, we heard all these Krishna conscious things. We need to balance it with life skills. And I think the whole idea is we need to be authentic. As Hare Krishna devotees, our ultimate Brahmastra, our ultimate gift to everybody is Hare Krishna, Krishna. But there are certain issues for which you may need professional help, for which you may need some other guidance. I can't say Krishna will take care of everything. If I say that, then I should be ready to help you in every stage of your life, to connect you to Krishna. But there are some things which, we are not experts, and we have to be authentic and confess, Prabhu, do the needful. Like if you go to some shops in India, I go in, many times it happens in Vrindavan, ek SIM card chahiye, ye wala company ka. So he knows one bakra has come, one customer has come, and he doesn't want to lose the customer, and he doesn't have the product that I want. So what he does, he tries to cheat me and sell what he has. अरे मेरे को वो नहीं चाहिए, मेरे को ये चाहिए. So ऑनेस्ट दुकानदार रहेगा तो क्या बोलेगा, ये मेरे पास नहीं है, आप उसके पास जाओ. तो आप हमारे पास आए हैं, तो हमारे पास क्या है हरे कृष्णा में? We can chant Hare Krishna, experience Krishna's love. And if we are struggling in our mental world, then we have 3 solutions we discussed. Let us increase the quantity of our sadhana or improve the quality of our spiritual practices. And if with both we are not finding peace, then what we need to do? Do the needful. So to conclude, remember I began by saying there are 11 things I wanted to share with you in these 2 days. I shared 3 yesterday and today 8. What are these? We'll conclude with that. The first was the 11 take-home points. The 4 steps to negotiate with the mind. Everybody knows this. What is the first step to negotiate with the mind? Recognize with awareness. Second, accept with humility. Third, negotiate with reason. Fourth, deal with kindness. And the second tool that I discussed yesterday was 1 Maha Mantra at a time. The third, bedtime prayer. And today we discussed about patience, avyagratva. Avyagratva is the Sanskrit term. Don't rush the practice. So if you are chanting and you feel that you're not finding peace and peaceful, just try this, one method. Just give up that watch, looking at the watch while chanting, and see the difference it makes. It's like being with your lover, being with your beloved, and not looking at the watch. Naturally, thoda to prem ka anubhav hoga. Patience. And then we have a very important spiritual practice: quantity, quality, and do the needful. And within quality, we discussed 4 things. First, the SALT method. What is SALT? Who will say? S. Sorry. A. Asking Krishna. Listen. And thank you. What is the commitment written report steps? Anybody remembers? What is this we spoke about? Commitment, and then come back to Krishna and report on what you did on that commitment. Then let the mind touch Krishna. Practice. What is that practice? Reading Krishna book or Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, 1 page. Then what do you do after that? Speak it to yourself or to your friend, and then whatever you have forgotten, go back, read it. And that way you can memorize the whole Krishna book. Our Prahladananda Maharaj, he has memorized the entire Krishna book like that. So as a brahmachari, in the temple, they would every night drink milk. All the brahmacharis would sit and drink milk, and he would read Krishna book. One day, suddenly the lights went off, electricity went off, but he continued reading because he had memorized the whole book. And that's when devotees realized, my God, he knows the whole book by heart. And in every class, he speaks shlokas because he keeps chanting. So when he gives Bhagavatam class here, not now, when we were younger brahmacharis, we used to play a game. Ye class mein kitna shlok bolte hain? We used to count. 110, 120, like that. That was the score. आज सेंचुरी मारेंगे क्या देखते हैं. So then he would only quote shlokas. And he's an American body, he's not Indian born. But Krishna consciousness is so powerful. So then Maharaj, when Radhanath Swami Maharaj was introducing him, he said, Prahladanand Maharaj has come from Shloka Loka. He said like that. So spiritual, this mind touching Krishna is very important. And last is a very nice technique. You can try this. Very exciting, especially if you have 2-3 friends. Recall, relish, and resolve. Recall means what you learned from the class. Relish means what you liked from the class. And resolve means what you would live by, what you could implement in your life. And then after that, we discussed the 6th point, non-violent communication. So I have the needs and feelings cards. Connect your feelings and needs and take some positive steps. And then slow down. Spend time in nature. And a very important topic, don't imitate. We discussed Srila Prabhupada's example here. For not imitating, we discussed what analogy? 1.5 hours sleep. No, we discussed an analogy, how to understand Srila Prabhupada and ourselves. Sun and the matchstick. So we are maybe somewhere in between. But even the floodlights in a cricket stadium cannot compare with the sun. So, अपने औकात में रहने का. फटे जूते पहन के आसमान पे चढ़े, मेरे सपने हमेशा औकात से बड़े. तो अपने औकात से बड़े नहीं रहने का. औकात में रहने का, humble रहने का. Accept oneself with humility. Then, and the 3 questions we can ask ourselves. Whenever we read something esoteric in Prabhupada's book, something which doesn't make sense, or something that bewilders your intelligence, instead of getting bewildered, simply ask what is the principle that Srila Prabhupada is talking about. And second, what is my position? And then how can I apply? And finally, last few was checking assumptions and aspirations based on, aspirations should be based on principles and values, not simply on desire. And we should check assumptions because assumptions are like termites. They can destroy our lives. And a game changer will be early morning. If you want to really experience peace, good health, get up early in the morning. You may say, but Prabhuji, I get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I can't get up at 5. No problem. Instead of 8, get up at 7:45 for a few weeks. Then 7:30. Then 7:15. Then one day you'll be getting up at 5. Overnight nahi hota hai, dheere dheere. Remember we gave the example of organic, natural. We have to trust slow. See, fast, our generation is obsessed with fast. Sab kuch fast, fast. Only cancer grows fast. The real good things go slow. Overnight चाहिए हमको, ऐसा overnight नहीं होता है, धीरे धीरे. ठीक है, वो हो गया. And then last is the free writing therapy. You can try. And one very important, I write articles every day. You can put the last slide. So what I shared with you is a basket of 11 tools. You can pick up any of those tools. And as you're practicing them, you will discover your own tools. You can add them in your basket. And I write articles, and some of you, I am sending you articles every day. So if you would like to be part of the broadcast list, you can send me one WhatsApp message. Then I can send you an article. Every day morning or in the evening, I send one article based on mental wellness and spiritual growth. And 29th and 30th June, we'll be doing part 2 of Mind Your Mind. It's called Living a Life from Denial to Acceptance. What is acceptance? We'll go into greater detail on what is a life of denial and how we could be more accepting of ourselves and how that can help us attain mental peace. So if you want articles, you can send me a WhatsApp message. I'll add you in the broadcast list. So thank you very much for your kind and patient hearing. I have ended 15 minutes early today so that we can have some time for questions and comments. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
RG Media YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe.